Alright everyone, how you guys doing? This video is being recorded from the Retina Macbook Pro HD cam. One of the reasons why I love the MacBook Pro, and now the MacBook Airs have also got the HD camera. But this video is about my week that I've had the Retina MacBook Pro. It's not fair enough to give a full-blown review of the Retina MacBook Pro in just a week's time. I need to use it a bit more before I can give you kind of a hands-on approach. But just to answer some of your questions that you've left on videos and give you a 1 week hands-on, how I'm finding it so far, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and take your comments and try and answer them in the comments below. So feel free to bash me if you want, or ask any questions that I've not answered. One of the questions I keep getting asked a lot is graphics. I have done a Battlefield 3 gaming test demo. It's visible on the channel, it's in the MacBook Pro playlist, check it out if you haven't already. The game ran absolutely fine, gorgeous graphics, and sadly that is the only time I played the game. I haven't played it since 4 or 5 days. I'm not a gamer, even although I'm wearing a Battlefield t-shirt. But a lot of you have asked, can Minecraft play? And it's one of those facepalm moments. If Battlefield 3 runs, which is 100 times better than the Game Boy graphics of Minecraft, of course Minecraft is going to run. It's just kind of why I asked the question. RAM and CPU. CPU is absolutely fantastic alongside the 8 gigs of RAM. What I'm finding is when I'm in Final Cut Pro X or iMovie, it is just so smooth to kind of, when you've got a clip imported in, and just hovering your mouse on the clip, it is just so fine. Whereas in the MacBook Air, sometimes it lagged depending on what background stuff was running, or generally it wasn't that noticeable, but you can just tell it's as like smooth as a baby's bottom. Not that I've touched any, but you get the point. It's just so fine when you're, you know, it just enhances the whole kind of experience. So RAM and CPU are phenomenal. The screen, gorgeous. I cannot go back. Look at that iMac back there, right? So I had to position this MacBook Pro in a certain way so you could see the friggin' wallpaper. That is at its full kind of brightness. And if I change the angle ever so slightly, it's just going to become a mirror and you're going to see the blinds behind me and so on. The Retina MacBook Pro isn't that. It's not glossy. It is a tiny bit, but it kind of makes up for it, but because the clarity on the screen is just gorgeous when you're reading off websites or when you're typing in text. Even the Apple logo here on the top, or you know where it says file, edit, about us, help, it is just so fine to read, and it just makes the whole kind of browsing and using the machine, shall I say. And I would say it's probably one of the things, one of the top things that I would keep a Retina MacBook Pro over the 13 or 15 inch MacBook Pros non-Retina. I didn't think they would be able to do screens better than the MacBook Airs. They proved me wrong, because this is a really fine screen. Moving on to speakers, OMG, literally phenomenal. You know, when I'm listening to music, and I'm not much of an audio guy, but I know what is good and what's bad, and the MacBook Air was bad in terms of audio. There was nothing, you know, magical. There was no bass, and hence why I always carried about an X Mini, which done me well. But the problem with sometimes that was the battery used to die, or just the additional hassle of carrying it around. And if you've forgotten it, you've forgotten it. The MacBook Pro, on the other hand, makes up for the audio, because it is just crisp. The bass is decent, and you can actually, you know, turn the volume up to full blast and not be embarrassed about it. And there's no crackling sounds, as was the case in the MacBook Airs. So it's good in that respect. You know, watching films, cannot wait to watch Taken 2 on this bad boy. Have you seen the trailer? If you haven't, I don't know what to say, but watch it. Storage, 256 gigs is what I've got on here. Doing really well. What I found with the MacBook Airs was, even although I wasn't, you know, approaching the 128 gig or touching the 128 gig mark, which is what I had in the MacBook previous to MacBook Air iterations, I was always hesitant in installing stuff, or I always used to check the Macintosh HD and see if there's space on it. Or heck, if you're thinking about installing Boot Camp, then this is really good that they've bumped up the storage from the MacBook Airs, giving you 2 times, which is 256. So storage wise, it's not going to be a problem. And I've installed tons of applications. I've got films on here, I've got my personal stuff and business stuff, and yet I've got, you know, a good 100 gig or so left. So there's going to be no issue. If you think you're going to be installing plenty of games on Windows through Boot Camp, then go for the higher end one, and I'm sure you are going to go for the higher end one. But if you have a lot of films, a lot of videos, bear in mind you can just easily pick up a USB 3 drives or a Thunderbolt drive, and then, you know, just just put them on the hard drives when you want to watch them. You can easily transfer them over, because of course this has got USB 3 and Thunderbolt, so the transfer times have now reduced. But of course, if you want to install hundreds of stuff, literally heavy files, then the higher end storage is something to consider. The weight of the machine, surprisingly, really good. I had a MacBook Pro 15-inch roughly about 2 years ago, and it was chunky. It was chunky, alright. And then when I got the MacBook Air in 2010, when it was radically kind of improved, I was like, wow. And then coming back onto the MacBook Pro 2 years down the line, I had reservations that why do you want to go from something so portable to a bulky machine again? And of course, come the keynote, they said it would, you know, it's thinner, lighter, no optical drive, no chunky hard disks inside. So I thought, okay, might be a good move, and rightly so. It's not that heavy. It's just a tiny bit more heavier than my MacBook Air. Nothing that I'm like, oh no, you know what, this is chunky, I can't carry it around. It's literally just a few more, you know, just a little bit more heavier than the MacBook Air. But all in all, for what you're getting in that more heavier, slightly heavier package, it outweighs it, you know, and I'm kind of loving it. Apple Care is a must. I would recommend anyone who's getting this machine to go for Apple Care, especially if you intend on keeping it for a few years, and not changing it every 3 weeks like I do. Because iFixit, who tear down devices, have found that they gave it a score of 1 out of 10 in terms of repairability. Just made that name up on the spot. But you can't, you know, get a screwdriver and change the hard drive, the RAM yourself. Anything goes wrong, you're likely to pay a hefty amount to Apple or any third-party reseller to fix this. If you don't have Apple Care, but if you have Apple Care, then, you know, Apple will fix it or replace it. This iMac behind me, purchased in 2009. There was a few issues in 2010, and sent back to Apple about 2 or 3 times, and it came back faulty. So Apple replaced it with a brand new generation of the iMacs, which, you know, was pretty nice. So make sure you're spending $1,799, especially if you're a student. You're only getting Apple Care for £50 for 3 years. So I would, it's just a no-brainer. Go for it, especially because the caliber of machine it is, it's not, you know, repairable per se. Now moving on to the thing that I'm not too keen on, heat. It's noticeable. Coming from a MacBook Air, at least. It doesn't get as hot as my 2-year-old MacBook Pro did back in the time, but coming from a MacBook Air, I do notice, especially when I've got this on a bed or a cushion, it can get warm, alright. Although there's no fan speed or, you know, loud fans kicking in, as was the case with my MacBook Pro, the heat is still there. Following on from that, battery, even although you get about 7 hours, I'm getting slightly less, but again, with the battery it's really tricky because it depends on what you are doing with the machine. If you're doing a lot of editing, a lot of graphic stuff, it's not really 7 hours, it's much less. It just depends on what you do. And here's where I think it was kind of a letdown in terms of battery. I was expecting they would do more, especially because they've got more kind of batteries inside this new Retina. So disappointing on that front. Battery technology from the MacBook Airs, at least, you know, you've got 30 days standby time. It would have been good if they'd done something with the battery, and yes, I know come next year they're probably going to bring something magical out, But it would have been good having these redesigned MacBook Pros come out to do something that bit more special, but maybe it's just, I'm just asking for a little bit too much. Things that I haven't tried out yet are USB 3 and Thunderbolt. If you have any recommendations for USB 3 drives, leave them in the comments below. You know, I'm really eager to try something out, especially because they're really decently priced over Thunderbolt devices, which I haven't used. Well, the only thing I've used when it comes to Thunderbolt is hooking up my Asus monitor, which works a charm. You know, really, it's so easy, and I did that with the MacBook Air as well, I guess. But did you buy a Retina MacBook Pro? What things are you really looking forward for me to kind of do in terms of test wise and video wise? How are you finding yours? I know there's been delays of the Retina MacBook Pros as of recent, so some of you have ordered your machines but not got them because there's some delay. There's been a few problems as well. Some customers saying they have experienced screen issues. It could, I think it's just a certain batch. There's no widespread notice or widespread problem reported on any of Apple support forums. It's isolated incidents, but then again, not everyone has got their machine yet. It's only a handful of customers, so we'll really find out to what extent the problem exists and when or if a software update will help in fixing the issue. Guys, that's it for this video. If you can join me on eyeglassregion.com, leave your comments below, ask me on Twitter or Facebook, links are on your screen, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!